Setting up. Okay, and here we are. We are live in the Wayfinders Club with our very first expert interview of the year. I'm super, super duper excited to have Tammy Cook here. Now, if you don't know Tammy, get to know her. She's amazing. She's a productivity coach for multi-passionate creatives. We're going to talk a little bit about what that is in a moment if you don't know what that is, but I know a lot of you in this group are multi-passionate. And she helps her clients become more organized, manage their time better, complete more projects. And they really need help with this because a lot of her clients are people who do a lot more than the average person. And her current program, which she's going to tell us about at the end, is called The Art of the Start, which is a 30-day one-on-one coaching program that helps creatives make massive progress on any goal they're stuck or avoiding. And Tammy, I just want to welcome you to the Wayfinders Club. Thank you for being here. So you work with people who describe themselves as multi-passionate. For the people in the group who don't know what that means, what is that?
Well, hi, June. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. As you know, because you are a multi-passionate, people who have too many things going on at once. So we actually thrive on having multiple projects, very creative. A lot of my clients don't consider themselves creatives because they might not be artsy, but they're idea people. They're just always coming up with new ideas. And I always say that, what happens is because we have so much in progress, we make a millimeter of progress in a million different directions.
Yeah.
So we kind of stall out just because we have too many things on our plate. If you're spinning plates, if you're a plate spinner, then you're in the right spot today.
Cool. Very cool. Okay. If you resonate with that, just drop that in the comments. And if you're watching this, just say like multi-passionate in the comments. If you're watching it on the replay, just use hashtag replay, because I would love to know how many people in this group identify as multi-passionate. And just like a word about that. Like, how do you know the difference between multi-passionate and ADHD? Because I'm sure people have asked you this.
Yeah, well, it doesn't really matter. I mean, okay. It doesn't matter. The thing is, we struggle with, and I call it, it's the executive function skills, which is switching tasks, time management, creating structure. A lot of my struggles are the struggles of the ADHD, person. Mm-hmm. I've never been tested for ADHD, so I don't know if I have the neurochemical, the quote unquote disorder of ADHD. Mm-hmm. A lot of my clients have had ADHD. Some of them are on medication, some of them aren't. Uh-huh. So I always call it ADD-ish. Yes. So we have the same struggles as people with ADHD. And if you read books on how to work through ADHD, it'll really help you if you are multi-passionate, because we struggle with a lot of the same things, whether or not we have the disorder. It's a moot point because we struggle with a lot of the same things.
Cool. Yeah. And I can see also, like, even just in our society today, we are all constantly distracted by so many different things. So even if it's not like you're just specifically diagnosed as ADHD or ADD or whatever, you've still got those struggles of
situational. Yeah, situational ADD. There's constant input. Yeah. And because of our wiring, we're curious. So we're highly distractible. So part of our thing is that we're interested in a lot of these things coming in, which makes it even harder to stay on task. So yeah, that's situational ADD for sure.
Yes. And the keyword there is curious, right? Because it's like, you want to explore different things and be like, oh, what's down this path and what's down this path. So what are some of the specific challenges then that multi-passionates have with time management?
Okay. So multi-passionates, the thing is, I like to say too, and I actually spoke on this earlier today in my Facebook group, but there's two different kinds of time. There's polychronic people and there's monochronic people. Monochronic people are your linear thinkers, your accountants. So basically, multi-passionate is a creative, and the non-multi-passionate, the linear thinker, is the accountant. So imagine an accountant walks into the room, and then 5 minutes later, the creative will walk in because they're going to be late.
Yeah.
So time management, polychronic means that you like to juggle a lot of different things at once. You like to have your thoughts going in several different ways. You can kind of switch tasks. It's challenging to get back on task at times, but you can kind of focus on a few things at once, and that's how you thrive.
Oh, wow.
Monochronic means that you follow the clock. You want everything done like at 8 o'clock, then at 9 o'clock, like business.
Yes.
Another way of thinking about it is, look, think of a mother at home managing a baby. You know, it's kind of on the baby's schedule. That's polychronic. You're just working with the energy and the flow of things. And
Yeah.
monochronic is working on the time, the linear time hours.
Wow. Okay. That's cool because I think I'm actually a monochronic person. Like I like to focus on one thing at a time and
Yes.
I don't multitask very well. Like I do, but it's really bad for me, like
Well, nobody
energetically to
can
do
really
that.
multitask. Yeah, nobody can
Yeah.
really multitask effectively. We think we can,
Yeah.
but we can't. And that's why we never finish things, because we're trying to multitask. So there's a difference between multitask and having
Okay.
multiple projects too.
Right. So that's important to note. Yeah, that they're not the same thing, that it's you can still focus. But if you're a, what did you call it? Multi-chronic. And if you're a multi-chronic person,
Polychronic. Yeah.
polychronic. Okay, so write that if you're watching this on replay or Dawn, whoever's watching this right now, write down what you think you are. If you're polychronic or if you're monochronic, polychronic or monochronic. Good. I'm going to
All
remember
these,
these.
all these, yeah.
Poly or time. Yes. Yeah. So if you are a polychronic person, so you just said you like to have different things in your head at the same time. What's that like? Like, to just elaborate a little for those of us who
How
are
many
like,
windows do you have open on your laptop?
oh, okay, how many windows do I have open? Right now, I just have like 3, so I can focus on just this. I have like the
I had
questions
a
I'm
client
asking
message
you.
me today and say I closed 60 windows on my laptop today.
Oh my
Yes.
God.
So
Okay.
we thrive on input, but the problem is we have so many things going on. I can prove that nobody can multitask, and here's how I can prove this. And I think you and I have had this discussion before. Have you ever been driving in your car and you're going to somewhere new and you got your music playing and you're kind of jamming as you're going along, and when you get close to the place, you turn down your radio to find the house number?
Yes.
You're
Yeah.
only doing that because even if you think you're not, the music is distracting you. We really can
Right.
truly, when we need our utmost concentration, we can only focus on one thing at a time, even though we want to focus on multiple.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. So if you are a polychronic person, what is the secret to getting stuff done then versus a monochronic person? Because I think our society is really built, and a lot of these time management strategies that we see, the traditional ones, like the Covey planners, are all
Yes.
made for monochronic people. Like it's you're writing a list and it's very sequential, and you must
Absolutely.
do this before this. So what if you're a polychronic person? What are some time management strategies that are going to work for you?
All right, I am a huge fan of Post-it notes. The things with the polychronic people is we like to work a lot more by energy than by the clock. So I don't know, a lot of my clients have, the Covey time management where you get the grid and you fill out your time at 9 o'clock, I'm going to do this. And then at the end of the week, you haven't stuck to it at all.
Yeah. And then you feel like a failure. Yeah.
And you feel like a failure. Yeah. And that's my biggest thing about, and I call this the Renaissance mind, the multi-passionate person. My biggest thing about the Renaissance mind is you're not wired wrong, you're wired differently. And how can you manage it most effectively? So for the day, I would say take 3 to 4 Post-it notes of your top priorities for the day. Take those Post-it notes and put them either on the wall or on your notebook in front of you in order that you're going to work on them. I am a huge fan, and I have it over on my table, like 5 feet away from me. I am a huge fan of working with timers. If you've ever heard of the Pomodoro technique,
Yes, I love the Pomodoro technique.
Yes. Yeah. So, they recommend 25 minutes of working and then a 5-minute break. When you really break, take a break from it. You stop and take a break, and then you come back to it, and you can play with those time windows. But I recommend having your little 4 priorities for the day, working on the top one with the timer going. And then when that's done, you can either choose to work on it longer or to move it to the bottom of your row of Post-it notes. It's much more flexible, it's much more fun, and it works with your energy. And if you really don't feel like doing the next task, you can take the Post-it and put it at the bottom, and you're working on your 4 priorities, but you're giving yourself some flexibility for doing it.
I love this. I love this. So you don't have to keep going with one thing like till it's done. If it's like you put in your 25 minutes, it can become like your 3rd priority now, and you can switch up the way your brain's working. And yeah, that's amazing.
Yes. Or if you're in flow, you stick with it. And what that does is, for the polychronic person, that gives you the freedom to follow your creativity, because sometimes part of what gets us stuck is we hit a wall. And have you ever left a project and you're frustrated, and then when you come back to it, you have like a new sense of direction, and you processed internally when you had time away. So
Yes.
sometimes we hit that wall because we need to do processing, but we're not aware of it. So when you switch to a different task, that gives you the time to process. And then when you come back to it, it's like you don't even know it, but you process internally and you can move again. So it gives you that freedom to work a little bit more intuitive as part of polychronic too. You're a little more intuitive rather than linear and, regimented.
Yes. I love this. Like, I love the freedom that's contained within that. That's so cool. Okay, so let's talk about, we talked about polychronic and monochronic. Let's talk about clutter, because I know that you're a big theme for you this month in your group is decluttering. So what's the relationship between clutter and getting stuff done?
Now, and you had told me this too, that, you can kind of work with some clutter and everything, but you prefer to work with it clear. Well,
Yeah, I'm not good with clutter.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes, you like it clear, but you understand that a lot of people say, they work better in a cluttered environment.
Yes.
Here's the thing: when you imagine walking into a hotel, and it's one of the big open ones, and there's all that space. How do you feel?
Oh, I love it. I'm like, I feel
You're
like I can breathe.
inspired. You're clear. Yes, you get so clarity. Space gives clarity. So even
Mhm.
if you say you work good cluttered, like when I work, for example, I like to spread out either on a 6-foot table or on a bed, and I spread everything out so I can see it. But it's all stuff that I'm working on. And so
Mhm.
it's not like things that aren't related to it. So it looks cluttered, but it's really all relevant. But when there's
Mhm.
clutter around, it really does drain your focus and drain your energy. And so think about, like I said, when you walk into that place, and most people at home too, they know that when their home is neat and organized and not real cluttery, they just feel they have that space, that breathing. You can breathe better. If you can breathe better, it has to be something, going on physically, even if it doesn't seem physical.
Right. Yeah. It's like there's more energy. But yet I know I think of my ex-husband.
Mhm.
And he was so, I never touched his desk because it was his space. It was his
Yes.
little man cave. But he always had so much stuff on there. And to me, I was like, how can you even work in like, and it was just be random stuff, not always stuff that he needed, but he seemed to be able to function. And I wonder, I read something about men and women have better peripheral vision than men. Men are more able to focus on like what's directly in front of them.
Okay.
So I wonder if it was because he was a man or if it was, but I also know men who like deep, like spaciousness and don't want clutter either. So I don't know, like, are there types of people who are really actually really comfortable? Like it makes them feel safe and contained to be surrounded by things?
Well, here's the thing. Renaissance mind or creatives, part of our trademark is that we are visual. Most of us are visual thinkers and visual people.
Hmm.
So what happens is if you file something in a folder, it's out of sight, out of mind. You
Yeah.
never can find it again. So we
Yeah.
don't like to file. So that's why we have those piles. And like you said, he could find his stuff. We know where in the pile it is. That's because we're visual spatial thinkers. It's simply that we're not linear thinkers. Linear thinkers can file things away and then go find them again. Visual
Oh,
spatial
need to
thinkers,
see it.
yes. So I recommend having ways of organizing. I call them stations, just like you're in kindergarten. Have ways of organizing your things where, I use plastic bins for a specific project, and everything, the folders, the papers go in a plastic bin, and then it can go on the shelf. So it's all together in a bin. So that project is organized, but it's not in a stack this high on my desk. So I
Right.
recommend doing a lot of visual and organizing things like up and down instead of in file cabinets across, because we don't think that way. When we start to put things in a file cabinet, we also have, and I say, we have a problem organizing things like categorizing, because we
Mhm.
see too many connections. Well, geez, this is an auto insurance policy. Should that go under bills? Should it go under insurance? Should it go under important documents, or should it go under records? I mean, we put so many things in there. So we file it in the cabinet, but we don't know where we filed it because there's 10 different words we could use to associate with that one item.
Right. And I guess, and that would work online too, because so much of our filing now is like on our computers. Like, where do you
Yeah.
put stuff? And so, even just having, like, I think about another guy who I worked with once, and his desktop, and maybe this is another sign of somebody who is polychronic or multi-passionate or both, is he had all his files, kind of like the links to all of them was just all across his desktop. Like his desktop wasn't decluttered. It was just like all there so he could find. And I'd look at this and I'd be like, I have no idea how you would ever find something. But he's like, oh no, if I need this file, it's here. If I need this file, it's here. And it was just like in front of his eyes as opposed to filed in a C drive somewhere or on a share drive somewhere. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah. And everything is about customizing it, of course, to you and to what works best for you. And so if you can sort it, I always recommend trying to sort things into logical groups and, have the same groups. Start with just 5 categories or 4 categories and group everything into those first 4 categories, And so, for example, for computer files, if it's work related, have a file just for work. If you have a specific hobby, have a specific folder just for that hobby. So I recommend doing as high level as you can first and then drilling down. But like I said, part of it is we need to be consistent about our categorizing. And part of that too is just training ourselves.
Right. And remembering what those categories are. And thank God we have the search function.
Yeah, I love Evernote for that reason. I love Evernote because Evernote is designed to be searchable for your files instead of, like pictures. If I have a picture on my phone I want to find, do you know how long it takes to find that?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Forget pictures because none of them say what anything is.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. But Evernote, is that a Mac thing or is that a thing? What is Evernote?
It's both. It's like OneNote. It's an equivalent of OneNote. It's a note. It's just a repository for sorting your files and folders, and different, you can clip a web page and put it in there. So it's basically, but you can like take notes in there. So it's kind of like Word, like Microsoft Word or something like that, except that's what it is. But you can drop folders or pictures in there. You can drop folders. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have used that. Yeah.
Note taker. Yeah. I use it for like notes and writing. Yes.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay. So clutter. I'm wondering too, if sometimes we create clutter as a way of procrastinating.
Well, I think what we do, I don't think we do it on purpose,
No.
but I think we use it as a stall tactic for sure. I'd rather, or planning too. I love this too. I'd rather declutter, that's when I want to declutter my whole house or declutter my table instead of facing the project. So I think we use it as a stall tactic or replanning. Have you ever planned something and then replanned it instead of taking the action?
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, I'll just go a little deeper into this strategy or, oh, now I need to get like really specific on the details or
Yes. Yeah. We're big picture thinker and we want to get the big picture and see that whole overview, but we don't want to go do the nitty gritty, dirty detail work. That's boring. And when we get bored, that's when we lose interest and we disengage. And that's when we fall off the rails.
So what's the trick to not getting bored then?
Because
we all have to do that work that's going to be boring at some point, right?
Absolutely. There's a couple different tricks. The first one of them is training yourself. Pomodoros, the timer works really good for if there's a task you really don't want to do, you can whittle it away in 5-minute sections over the course of your day. Set that timer for 5 minutes and it's, you don't have to, it's not, when I say it's self-discipline, everybody hates self-discipline, but you know what? You discipline yourself every day. When you get out of bed, you get dressed. That takes discipline. Discipline isn't hard. we make discipline this dirty word, and it's not a dirty word. It's just training your brain to do something a little bit differently because actually you have the discipline of not doing your work if you're not doing it. It's just the habit. So you need to just discipline yourself to be able to stay on task a little bit better. And it's something learnable. So start with 5 minutes, do it 5 minutes, twice in the morning and then 5 minutes in the afternoon. Most of the time, once we break the initial resistance, art of the start.
Yes.
If you get in there, you work for more than 5 minutes easily anyway.
Yeah.
Getting over that initial resistance.
It's that initial like, I really don't want to do this. I just want to do something else. Yes.
And you can actually do even a mind dump. I work with creatives. Do a mind dump. 10 ways that I can start a project when I don't want to. Phone a friend. Call your friend and say, I don't want to do this. Will you just talk with me for 5 minutes till I get started? Okay, what's the first thing I have to do? Open the file and just have somebody talk you through it. It sounds ridiculous, but it'll help you get there. There's actually a website. It's called FocusMate. And what it is it's co-working. So you get on and for 50 minutes, you co-work on camera with somebody, a stranger, but it gets you working and you're locked in there because you're on their camera. And so you've committed to whatever task you committed to for 50 minutes.
That's so cool. It's called Workmate?
Yeah, it's called Focus Mate.
Focus Mate. That's so cool. Because I'm in a co-working group
Yes.
that we meet with the same people every morning, and we do that just for that reason. Like we work together for 2.5 hours every
Yeah.
morning just to get, and we say this is what we're going to work on. Then the timer goes, and then we're working, and then we're reporting back. How did we do?
For creatives who work from home, that's actually one of the most powerful things that you can do to create structure. We don't like structure, yet without any structure, we have no power. We get nothing
It's
done.
like,
We don't stay exactly. Everything's just
yeah.
exactly. So we need to find ways of creating our own structure. And like I said, do a mind dump. How can I create structure? How can I get myself started? How can I stick to a task? Just use your creativity to benefit you instead of to hold you back.
Yeah, and find like innovative ways to do that.
That work
I
for
love that.
you.
That
Yeah,
works
because
for you. Yeah, because what works for, and that's, I think this is so important. And this is, I think, really like the theme of what we're getting at here is like what works for one person isn't necessarily going to work for you. So if what
yes.
other people are doing isn't working for you, that doesn't mean something's wrong with you. It just means that you have to find another way to, that there's something else out there.
Yeah. And I always tell, especially as creatives, tap into your greatest resource, your own creativity. Do a mind dump of how to best manage myself. And I always call this self-management. People call it time management, but as you know, you can't manage time. Let's manage the next 60 seconds. Tick,
Right.
tick. You can't do anything about the time. We can do
Yeah.
with what we're focusing on during that 60 seconds. There's nothing, time is external.
Yes.
Really about self-management, and we have all the resources right here. We just need to figure out different ways of using them, and some ideas resonate with you and you're like, oh, that's a great idea, try that. Other
Yeah.
ideas like that would never work for me. Okay, good, let it go, don't even think about it again. It's like going to a buffet. If you don't like tomatoes, don't take a tomato.
Yes.
Find something that works for you that you like.
Yeah. I love this. This is so good. So yeah, if you're watching this and if there was an idea that this sparked, write it in the comments and let Tammy and I know. I know I'm going to try definitely like the 4 priorities on the post-it notes, and then
Yeah.
like not forcing myself to complete one unless there's a deadline, then of course I'll complete it, but say, okay, maybe, okay, I've done so much of this. If I'm not into it, I'll come back to it this afternoon or later on.
I call
Yeah.
it post-it planning. And if I even sometimes I don't need to finish the whole thing that day. So you
Mhm.
can move that post-it to the next day, and then you're down to 3 post-its for the day. It's just making consistent progress on that. So yeah, so sometimes even with your post-it planning, you don't have to finish a task, but if you work on it for half an hour and then you work on it for half an hour tomorrow and you work on it for half an hour the next day, you'll whittle it away to nothing over the week.
Yeah. I love this. This is so good. Tammy, you have such good ideas. You really do. So tell us, how can people work with you and find out more about what you do?
So right now what I'm doing is I'm promoting this program called Art of the Start. In my Facebook group, it's called the Renaissance Mind Playground, Time and Project Management for Multi-Passionates or for Creatives, I don't know. but it's called the Renaissance Mind Playground. In my group, we are covering organizing and decluttering for the entire quarter, because this is such a huge topic for the multi-passionate creative person. And it's just a matter of training, and I have a million tips. So join that for free. We've got a million tips coming if you do struggle with time management organization. If you need a little more structure, the Art of the Start is a 30-day daily accountability program. You're touching base with me twice a day, once in the morning, once at night. In the morning, you tell me what you're going to commit to for that day for just 5 minutes. And in the evening, you check in and tell me that you did it or not. You get a file from me every day, encouragement, kudos, but it's that accountability. And what we do is over the course of the month, the first week it's 5 minutes of time. The second week it's 10 minutes of time. The third week you're doing 20 minutes. And the fourth week you're doing 30 minutes a day on your project. All we're doing is building the habit of consistency and rebuilding faith in yourself. And once
Amazing.
you can do that. You have all the documents. You have 30 days worth of documents. You can repeat the program by yourself. You can work with me again. You can work with a friend. I mean, you've got everything in front of you to do it again and again. So it's fully repeatable. But what it does is it's having somebody to be accountable to every day while you're just starting something that you're resisting is so helpful. So, so that's the best way to work with me right now is that Art of the Start program. Super simple way to get started on something you're stuck on, you've been resisting, or you've been avoiding. And then if you want to, like I said, if you struggle with organizing, decluttering, we also cover time management, self-management, project management, mindset in my Renaissance Mind group, the Renaissance Mind Playground.
Very nice. Okay. And we'll drop the link to the Renaissance Mind Playground in the chat so that people can find you and connect with you to find out more about the Art of the Start. Tammy, it's been such a pleasure as always. Hopefully I'll have you back on the show later this year because I just love your perspective. And I'm also like a time management junkie like you. Like it's just ways
I
to
know.
organize. So exciting.
I know, it's fabulous. Yes, no, and thanks too. And yeah, I actually have implemented your one thing, which is so the opposite, the one thing in the Renaissance mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've implemented the one thing and it was so valuable in that class too. So thank you. Thank you very much for
Nice.
your information. I
Nice.
need that kind of help.
Cool. It goes both ways. All right. And if you have any questions for Tammy, drop them in the comments or you can always send either of us a message. All
Thank you so
right.
much for having me, Jim.
Okay.